It's a Tuesday evening, and I'm sitting at my second-hand dining table, the one I bought at a garage sale 15 years ago for $35. The wood is scratched, one leg wobbles slightly, and if you look closely you can see where someone's child once carved their initials into the corner. In front of me sits my bank statement. $847,000. I stare at those numbers, and then I smile. Not because I'm proud, though maybe I should be, but because of what I'm about to do with this information. Absolutely nothing. I carefully fold the statement, walk across my small living room with its thrift store furniture and faded curtains, and kneel beside the bookshelf. My fingers find the loose baseboard, the one that's been loose since I moved in 23 years ago. Behind it is a locked metal box. Inside that box are all my secrets: bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns showing my real income, $30,000. Every single month. For the last 8 years. I'm the chief financial officer of a Fortune 500 company, and absolutely no one in my personal life knows it. If you're wondering how someone keeps a secret this big for this long, and why anyone would even want to, hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to get very interesting. And trust me, by the end, you'll understand exactly why some secrets are worth keeping. Until they're not. 23 years ago, my husband died. David, my son, was only 5 years old. One moment I was a stay-at-home mom with a comfortable life, and the next I was a widow with a kindergartner, a mortgage, and a choice to make. See, my husband had been, let's just say, financially comfortable. Very comfortable. And when he died, I inherited everything. I could have raised David in luxury, sent him to private schools, bought him everything he ever wanted. But I'd seen what money did to people. I'd watched my husband's family tear itself apart over inheritance. I'd seen friends' children grow up entitled, disconnected, unable to understand that most people struggle, unable to feel empathy for anyone who didn't summer in the Hamptons. So I made a decision that everyone thought was crazy. I took that inheritance, invested it wisely, went back to school for my MBA, and started working my way up from an entry-level accounting position. Meanwhile, I moved us to this modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. I shopped at thrift stores. I drove a used Honda that I kept running for 15 years. I clipped coupons. And I never, ever told David about the money. I wanted my son to understand hard work, to value a dollar, to treat the janitor and the CEO with the same respect, because he'd never know which one had more character. I wanted him to see me struggle, really struggle. So he'd develop empathy, grit, resilience. And you know what? It worked. David grew up kind, humble, hardworking. He put himself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. He became a marketing manager through his own merit. He married a wonderful woman named Jennifer, and he treats everyone from the parking attendant to his boss with genuine respect. Mission accomplished, right? Well, maybe I accomplished it a little too well. My phone rings, interrupting my thoughts. It's David. Hey, Mom? His voice has that particular brightness that I've learned means he's nervous about something. So, I wanted to ask you something. Of course, sweetheart. What is it? There's a pause. Jennifer's parents want to meet you. They're having dinner this Saturday at their restaurant. Well, one of their restaurants. They own a chain. Marcello's? Maybe you've heard of it? I have. Actually. I reviewed their financial statements 2 years ago when they applied for expansion capital through a subsidiary of my company. Their debt-to-equity ratio made my teeth hurt. But I don't say that. That sounds lovely, I say instead. Another pause. Mom, her parents they're successful, like really successful. They're used to they're just be yourself, okay? They're good people. Probably. That last word, probably, tells me everything I need to know. David, I say gently, what exactly have you told them about me? The truth, he says quickly. Too quickly. That you work in an office. That you raised me alone after Dad died. That you're resourceful. Resourceful. That's an interesting word choice. And what do they think resourceful means? I ask. I can practically hear him squirming through the phone. I mean, Jennifer knows you work hard. That money's been tight sometimes. That I help you out when I can. My heart clenches. David, you don't need to. I want to, Mom. You sacrificed everything for me. The least I can do is send you a little money each month. $300. He sends me $300 every month from his own modest salary because he thinks his mother is struggling. And I've let him because stopping him would raise questions I wasn't ready to answer. Until now. So, I say slowly, Jennifer's parents think I'm poor. Mom, I never said, but that's what they think, and you're worried about how they'll treat me. The silence on the other end confirms it. Don't worry, sweetheart, I tell him, and something shifts in my chest, a decision crystallizing. I'll be there. Saturday night, you said? Yeah, 7 o'clock. Mom, just be yourself. If they're rude or anything, we'll leave. I promise. Oh, David, I say softly, I'm always myself. The question is, which version of myself should I be? He doesn't understand what I mean. Not yet. After we hang up, I sit in the growing darkness of my apartment, thinking, David is embarrassed of me. Not consciously, he loves me fiercely. But there's something in his voice, something in those careful words. He's worried his successful in-laws will judge his poor mother. He's bracing for their condescension. And suddenly, I'm angry. Not at David. Never at David. But at these people I've never met, who already think they're better than someone they know nothing about. These successful people with their restaurant chain and their assumptions. I want to know what kind of people my son has married into. I want to see their true character. And there's only one way to do that. I'm going to give them exactly what they expect. I walk to my closet, and yes, it's a small closet, because this is a small apartment, because I chose a small apartment, even though I could afford a penthouse. I push past the few designer suits I wear to the office, hidden in garment bags at the very back, and pull out my oldest clothes. A faded floral dress I bought at a clearance sale 8 years ago, worn flat shoes with scuffed toes, a threadbare cardigan with a small moth hole near the hem. I lay them out on my bed and study them like a costume designer preparing for opening night. Because that's exactly what this is, a performance. I practice in the mirror. I let my shoulders slump slightly. I wring my hands. I make my voice smaller, more uncertain. Oh, I don't know much about fancy restaurants. I try it several ways, finding the right tone, humble but not pathetic, simple but not stupid. I need them to underestimate me. I need them to show me who they really are when they think they're talking to someone powerless, someone beneath them. It's amazing what people reveal when they think you're no threat at all. My phone buzzes with an email notification. It's from my company's PR department. Subject line, final approval needed, magazine feature. My stomach drops. I open it. There's a PDF attachment, next week's issue of Business Executive magazine. The cover story, Top 50 CFOs in America. And there I am. Page 14. Professional headshot, the one where I'm wearing my Armani suit, hair perfectly styled, sitting in my corner office with the city skyline behind me. The caption reads, Eleanor Chen, CFO of Tech Venture Global, the woman behind the $500 million turnaround. The article goes live in 6 days, 4 days after the dinner. I stare at my phone, then at my reflection in the mirror, this humble, dowdy version of myself in the faded dress, and I start to laugh. The timing is either catastrophically bad or absolutely perfect. Because here's the thing about being underestimated. It's only a problem if you plan to stay hidden. And suddenly, I realize I'm tired of hiding. Saturday evening arrives. I'm dressed in my costume, makeup minimal, hair in a simple style that adds 5 years to my age. I look exactly like what Jennifer's parents will expect. A struggling widow who did her best, but never quite made it. I take one last look in the mirror and whisper to my reflection, showtime. David picks me up at 6:30. When I open the door, I watch his face carefully. There's relief there. I look presentable. But there's also guilt. Just a flicker across his features that breaks my heart a little. You look nice, Mom, he says and hugs me tight. So do you, sweetheart. He's wearing his best suit, the one I secretly paid for by depositing money in his account and telling him it was a tax refund. He has no idea. In the car, he's chatty, nervous. Jennifer's really excited to meet you. Her parents, though, just, they can be a bit much. Her dad, Richard, he likes to talk about business. A lot. And Patricia, that's Jennifer's mom, she's very into, appearances. I'm sure we'll all get along fine, I say mildly. David reaches over and squeezes my hand. Mom, Jennifer's parents are, just be yourself, okay? I squeeze back. Don't worry, sweetheart, I know exactly who I am. He has no idea how true that statement is. We pull up to Marcello's and it's exactly what I expected. Ostentatious, expensive, trying too hard to impress. The kind of place that puts gold leaf on everything and thinks that equals class. As we walk toward the entrance, my heart is pounding. Not from nervousness, from anticipation. Because behind that door are people who are about to judge me, dismiss me, and patronize me based on my worn shoes and clearance rack dress. I take a deep breath, put on my most humble smile, and step inside. But I'm not prepared for what happens the moment I walk through that door. Because standing in the foyer, in designer clothes that probably cost more than my entire poor mother wardrobe, are Richard and Patricia Romano. And the first words out of Patricia's mouth, before David can even make introductions. Arl, David didn't mention you were... Well, Jennifer, dear, why don't we show your mother-in-law where the restroom is so she can freshen up? The emphasis on freshen up while her eyes rake over my outfit makes her meaning crystal clear. Richard doesn't even look up from his phone, and I realize this is going to be even more satisfying than I thought. A hostess leads us through the main restaurant, all crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, to a private dining room in the back, the kind of room reserved for people who think they're too important to eat with regular customers. The moment I step inside, my CFO brain automatically calculates. This room costs about $3,000 to reserve for the evening. The wine display on the wall? Another $15,000, minimum. The custom table? Imported Italian marble, probably $8,000. But I don't show any of this. Instead, I let my eyes go wide, like I've never seen anything so fancy in my life. Oh my, I breathe, touching the back of one of the chairs carefully, as if afraid I might break it. This is beautiful. Patricia's smile is the kind that doesn't reach her eyes. We believe in creating memorable experiences. Please, sit. I notice she directs me to the seat furthest from the head of the table, where she and Richard will obviously sit. It's subtle, but deliberate, putting me in the position of least importance. Jennifer looks mortified. She's a sweet girl. I could tell that from the moment I met her. She has kind eyes, the kind that see people, not bank accounts. Right now, those eyes are darting between her parents and me, anxious and apologetic. Mrs. Chen, Eleanor, it's so wonderful to finally meet you, Jennifer says, rushing around the table to hug me. David talks about you all the time. Please call me Eleanor, I say warmly, returning her embrace. And thank you for inviting me. David's told me so much about you. That, at least, is completely true. We settle into our seats. Richard sits at the head of the table, still glued to his phone, thumbs scrolling with the aggressive intensity of someone checking stock prices or social media engagement. He's wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000, but it's slightly too tight, and his cologne, some expensive brand, I'm sure, is applied with the subtlety of a teenager going to prom. He looks up just long enough to give me a cursory nod. Eleanor. Not nice to meet you. Not welcome. Just Eleanor. I smile humbly. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Romano. Richard, he corrects, but not in a friendly way. It's the kind of call me Richard that actually means but don't think we're equals. Patricia jumps in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. So Eleanor, David tells us you work in an office? The way she says office makes it sound like a foreign concept, something quaint and distant. Yes, I say, fidgeting with my napkin, a gesture I practiced in the mirror. Just boring accounting work, numbers and spreadsheets mostly. Very dull, I'm afraid. Accounting? Richard perks up slightly, though his interest feels more like an exterminator spotting a bug. What kind of accounting? Bookkeeping? Payroll? He rattles off the lowest level positions he can think of, each one a subtle jab. Oh, a bit of everything, I say vaguely, waving my hand. I work with financial statements, budgets, that sort of thing. Which is true. I just don't mention that the financial statements I work with are for a Fortune 500 company with annual revenues of $12 billion. Patricia leans forward, her perfectly manicured hands folded on the table. And you raised David alone? After your husband passed? There's that emphasis again, like single motherhood is a tragic condition that requires pity. Yes, I say softly, letting real emotion creep into my voice, because this part is true, and it still hurts. When my husband died, David was only 5. It was challenging. I can't even imagine, Patricia says, but her tone suggests she's grateful she doesn't have to. It must have been so difficult, financially, especially working in accounting. She pauses. Entry-level positions can be so limiting. She never asked what level position I hold. She just assumed. I glance at David. My beautiful, kind son is sitting rigid in his chair, his jaw clenched. I can see him trying to think of ways to redirect the conversation, to protect me from his in-laws' condescension. Mom put me through college, he says suddenly, his voice too loud. She worked multiple jobs some years, made sure I had everything I needed. Multiple jobs, Patricia gasps as if David just announced I'd had a terminal illness. You poor thing. I want to tell her that the multiple jobs were actually board positions I held at 2 different companies, each paying 6 figures annually. But instead, I just smile weakly. A mother does what she has to do, I say. Richard grunts, finally putting down his phone. Well, David certainly turned out well despite... He catches himself, but we all know what he was going to say. Despite me, despite my poverty, despite my limitations. Jennifer reaches under the table and squeezes David's hand. She shoots her parents a look that's equal parts frustration and warning. I like her more and more. A waiter appears with the wine list, a leather-bound monstrosity the size of a small book. Richard waves it away. No need. Bring us the 2015 Chateau Margaux. The waiter's eyes widen slightly. An excellent choice, Mr. Romano. I'll retrieve it immediately. After he leaves, Richard turns to me with a smile that makes my skin crawl. Eleanor, you probably aren't familiar with Bordeaux wines, but what I just ordered is a $400 bottle. One of the finest in the world. He says this like he's doing me a favor, granting me access to a world I could never otherwise experience. Consider it your education for the evening, he continues, chuckling at his own generosity. Patricia nods enthusiastically. We believe in living well. Life's too short for cheap wine. Her eyes flicker meaningfully to my worn cardigan, my scuffed shoes. The implication is clear. I wouldn't know anything about living well. I take a slow breath, maintaining my character. That's very kind of you. I'm sure it will be lovely. What I don't say, I have a wine cellar at my actual home, the one David has never seen, with bottles that would make Richard's $400 Bordeaux look like grocery store wine. I don't say that I've attended wine auctions where people casually bid $50,000 on a single case. I just smile my humble smile and wait. Jennifer looks like she wants to disappear under the table. When the menus arrive, I make a show of studying mine with slight confusion. Oh my, I say, squinting at the Italian names. I'm afraid I'm not very familiar with. What is ossobuco? Patricia practically beams. Finally, a chance to educate the poor, unsophisticated mother-in-law. It's braised veal shank, she explains slowly, like she's talking to a child. Very tender, quite expensive. The preparation is quite complex. It sounds wonderful, I say. Is it appropriate to order? I don't want to be presumptuous. I'm literally asking permission to order food at a restaurant. Richard waves his hand magnanimously. Order whatever you like, Eleanor. Tonight is our treat. We're celebrating family, after all. The way he says, celebrating family, makes it clear he considers this more of a charitable donation than a celebration. I order the ossobuco. It's actually one of my favorite dishes, and I know for a fact that the version they serve here is mediocre. I've read the reviews. But I make appropriately impressed noises when it arrives, like I've never tasted anything so refined in my entire life. Patricia watches me struggle slightly with the proper fork. Deliberately, of course, and exchanges knowing glances with Richard. They think they have me all figured out. They have no idea. We're halfway through the main course when Richard's phone rings. He glances at the screen and frowns. Excuse me, I need to take this. He steps away from the table, and through the glass partition, I can see him pacing, his free hand gesturing wildly. His face goes from annoyed to concerned to something that looks like genuine fear. Patricia tries to maintain conversation, asking Jennifer about wedding thank-you notes, but her eyes keep darting to her husband. When Richard returns, he's pale. Actually pale. His swagger is gone. What's wrong? Patricia asks immediately. Richard sits down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 58 years. That was Marcus. The investors for the Restaurant Row expansion they're pulling out. Patricia's perfectly composed face cracks. What? but they promised. The lead investor got cold feet, looked at our debt ratios, our leverage. Richard runs a hand through his hair, forgetting about the wine, forgetting about impressing anyone. If this deal falls through, we're in serious trouble. The bank loans are coming due, and without that investment capital... He doesn't finish the sentence, but everyone at the table understands the implication. They might lose everything. The irony is almost too perfect. The rest of dinner is different. Richard barely touches his food. Patricia tries to maintain appearances, but her hands shake slightly as she reaches for her wine glass, the $400 wine that suddenly seems like an obscene expense. Richard starts talking, not to impress anyone anymore, but because he needs to vent. I trusted my financial advisor, he says bitterly, paid him a fortune to manage our expansion strategy, and now, he's saying we're over-leveraged, that our debt-to-equity ratio is concerning? He makes air quotes, his voice dripping with sarcasm. My CFO brain is screaming. I reviewed their financial statements 2 years ago. Their debt-to-equity ratio wasn't just concerning, it was catastrophic. They were borrowing against assets that were already over-leveraged, using short-term gains to fund long-term expansion without adequate reserves. It's financial management 101, the mistakes that sink businesses. But I keep my humble expression and ask, in my most innocent voice, what's a debt-to-equity ratio? Richard looks at me like I've asked what color the sky is. It's the amount of debt compared to the value of the business. Every business carries some debt, but if it's too high... Oh, I say, nodding slowly like this is brand new information. And yours is too high? Apparently, he spits. According to the investors, according to the bank, according to everyone except me, who's actually built this business from nothing. I tilt my head, still playing my part. But couldn't you have kept some money aside? For emergencies? I always try to keep 6 months of expenses saved. It helps me sleep at night. The table goes silent. Patricia actually laughs, a sharp, cruel sound. Eleanor, dear, business doesn't work that way. You can't just keep money aside when you're growing an empire. You have to spend money to make money. Richard nods, though he looks less certain now. It's not like personal finance. There are different rules. But Jennifer is looking at me differently. Her eyes are narrowed slightly, thoughtful. Actually, she says slowly, that's what my business professor in college always said. He called it dry powder, keeping capital reserves for opportunities or emergencies. He said too many businesses fail because they're over-leveraged during downturns. Richard waves this away. Business school theory. Real world is different. But I can see a flicker of doubt in his eyes now. Because his daughter just contradicted him. And because maybe, just maybe, the simple woman in the worn cardigan asked a question that hit too close to home. By the time dessert arrives, some elaborate tiramisu with gold leaf that's trying way too hard, Patricia has recovered enough to take one more shot. Eleanor, she says, dabbing her lips with her napkin, it must be nice that David turned out so well, despite, well, everything. Despite everything, despite poverty, despite me, despite my worn shoes and my humble job and my simple life. I take a slow sip of the $400 wine that Richard forgot he was supposed to be educating me about, and I smile. Yes, I say softly, despite everything, David learned what really matters. Patricia nods, satisfied. And what's that, dear? I set down my wine glass with deliberate precision. My voice is still gentle, still humble, but there's something underneath it now, something sharp. Character, not credit cards. The table freezes. Patricia's smile locks in place, but her eyes flash with something, anger, maybe, or recognition, that she's been insulted but can't quite figure out how. Under the table, David squeezes my hand. Hard. When I glance at him, he's looking at me with a mixture of pride and confusion, like he's seeing something in me he never noticed before. Jennifer is staring at me with open curiosity now, and Richard has finally stopped thinking about his financial crisis long enough to really look at me for the first time all evening. We're just finishing coffee when a waiter approaches the table, looking apologetic. Mr. Romano, I'm sorry to interrupt. A gentleman at the bar recognized you from the business section. He asked me to deliver this. The waiter holds out a magazine. He said congratulations on the feature. Richard takes it, confused. Feature? I don't... He stops mid-sentence because it's not a feature about him. It's next week's issue of Business Executive magazine. Someone must have gotten an advance copy. And it's folded open to page 4 to my feature. My professional headshot stares up from the glossy page. Eleanor Chen, perfectly styled hair, Armani suit, sitting in my corner office with the city skyline behind me. The headline reads, Eleanor Chen, CFO of Tech Venture Global, the woman behind the $500 million turnaround. Richard's eyes go wide. He looks at the photo, looks at me, looks at the photo again. Patricia leans over, squinting at the page. Why would someone give you a magazine with... She trails off as she actually reads the name. Eleanor Chen, she whispers. Jennifer grabs the magazine. Her mouth falls open. David's hand goes slack in mine. Mom? And I realize, this is it. The moment where everything changes. I carefully set down my coffee cup. When I speak, my voice is different. No longer humble, no longer small. It's the voice I use in boardrooms, the voice that commands respect from billionaires and CEOs. Yes, I say calmly. That's me. Patricia looks like she might faint. Richard's face cycles through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds, and David just stares at me like he's never seen me before in his life. I believe, I say, standing up from the table with perfect posture, my worn cardigan suddenly looking like a deliberate choice rather than a limitation. We need to talk. My secret is out. The magazine sits in the center of the table like a bomb that's already detonated. My professional photo, Eleanor Chen, CFO, in my corner office, stares up at 5 people who thought they knew exactly who I was. They were wrong. Richard Romano's face has gone through shock, confusion, and is now settling on something that looks like panic. Patricia's mouth is opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Jennifer's eyes are wide with dawning understanding. And David, my son, my beautiful boy, is staring at me like I'm a complete stranger. Mom? His voice cracks on that single word. That's really you? I look at my son, this man I raised with deliberate poverty and carefully maintained lies, and I realize there's no going back now. The mask is off. And honestly, after 23 years, it feels like taking off shoes that were always 2 sizes too small. I set down my coffee cup, fine china, probably $50 a piece. Not that the Romanos would know good china from Walmart clearance, despite all their pretensions. And when I speak, my voice is completely different. No more humble hesitation. No more apologetic uncertainty. This is the voice I use when I'm telling a boardroom full of executives that their quarterly projections are delusional. The voice that makes venture capitalists sit up straight and pay attention. Yes, Richard, I say calmly. I'm that Eleanor Chen. Richard's still holding the magazine, his knuckles white. But your clothes, this whole evening, was a performance, I finish for him. I came here tonight pretending to be poor because I wanted to see your true character, how you treat people you perceive as beneath you. I pause, letting that sink in. You failed, spectacularly. Patricia makes a sound, half gasp, half whimper. Her perfectly manicured hand flies to her throat, where a diamond necklace probably worth $30,000 suddenly looks like a noose. I've spent this entire evening, I continue, my tone conversational but sharp as a scalpel, watching you treat someone you believed was struggling with contempt, with pity, with condescension. I lean forward slightly, and Richard actually flinches, while your own financial house burns down through sheer mismanagement and arrogance. Richard's phone rings again. He looks at it like it's a snake. He doesn't answer. That's probably Marcus again, I say pleasantly. Your lead investor? The one who finally looked at your actual debt-to-equity ratio and realized you've been running your business like a Ponzi scheme with better interior design? Richard's face goes from pale to red. How do you? I reviewed your financial statements 2 years ago, I say, when you applied for expansion capital through Tech Venture's restaurant investment subsidiary. We rejected your application. Your leverage was catastrophic even then. I'm honestly surprised you've lasted this long. The silence at the table is deafening. Patricia's voice comes out as barely a whisper. You knew? This whole time, you knew about our financial situation? I had a pretty good idea. I take a sip of the $400 wine that Richard ordered to educate me. When someone brags about their success that loudly, it's usually because they're terrified people will discover the truth. It's a tell, like a poker player who goes all in on a weak hand. Jennifer makes a small sound, half laugh, half gasp. When I glance at her, she's looking at me with something like awe. But David is still frozen, his face cycling through emotions too fast for me to track them all. Mom. His voice is quiet, devastated. Why didn't you tell me? And just like that, my boardroom confidence wavers, because this is what I've been dreading for 23 years, this moment, this question. David, I sent you money. His voice cracks. Every month for the past 3 years, I sent you $300 because I thought you were struggling. I ate ramen for dinner so I could afford to help you. And you're a millionaire? The pain in his voice physically hurts. You're right, I say softly. I should have stopped you. I should have told you years ago. But what? He stands up, his chair scraping against the floor. But you wanted to see if I'd turn out okay? If I'd be a good person? Was I some kind of experiment to you? No, I say firmly, standing to face him. You were never an experiment. You were my son. You are my son. And after your father died, I had to make a choice. Everyone at the table is watching us now. Even Richard has forgotten about his crumbling empire for a moment. When your father died, I say, and my voice is raw now, all the protective layers stripped away, he left us comfortable. Very comfortable. And I looked at you, this 5-year-old boy who'd just lost his father, and I had to decide what kind of man I wanted you to become. David's jaw is clenched, but he's listening. I'd seen what money did to people. Your father's family tore itself apart over his inheritance. My college friends' kids grew up entitled, disconnected, unable to feel empathy for anyone outside their bubble. I take a breath. I didn't want that for you. I wanted you to understand struggle, to value hard work, to treat the janitor and the CEO with the same respect, because you'd never learn to see people as superior or inferior based on their bank balance. So you lied, David says flatly. I withheld, I correct? There's a difference. Is there? His eyes are shining with unshed tears. Because from where I'm standing, it feels an awful lot like lying. I don't have a good answer to that, because maybe he's right. Patricia suddenly stands, her chair nearly tipping over. Her face is blotchy with shame and anger, a terrible combination. How dare you, she hisses. You came into our restaurant, into our family, and played us for fools. I didn't have to play you for anything. I cut her off, and there's steel in my voice now. You played yourselves. I walked in wearing worn clothes, and you immediately decided I was lesser than you, worthy of pity at best, contempt at worst. Patricia's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Every condescending comment, every pitying glance, every assumption you made about my intelligence, my worth, my value as a human being, that was all you, Patricia. I just gave you the opportunity to reveal who you really are. We were being kind, Patricia sputters. We were trying to make you feel welcome despite my poverty, I finish. Despite my obvious inadequacy as a mother, despite the fact that David somehow turned out well in spite of me. I quote her own words back at her, and she flinches. That's not kindness, Patricia. That's arrogance dressed up in designer clothes. Richard finally finds his voice. You had no right. I had every right, I say calmly. I'm David's mother. He married your daughter. That makes us family, whether you like it or not. And I wanted to know what kind of people were joining my family. Now I know. Jennifer, who's been silent through most of this nuclear explosion, suddenly speaks up. Mrs. Chen, Eleanor, I'm so sorry. Her voice is thick with emotion. My parents. The way they treated you tonight was inexcusable. I'm mortified. I turn to her, and my expression softens. You have nothing to apologize for, Jennifer. You were kind all evening. You saw a person, not a bank balance. That says everything about your character and nothing about theirs. Jennifer's eyes fill with tears. I should have said something, should have stopped them. You did, I tell her gently. You were uncomfortable. You squeezed David's hand. You tried to redirect the conversation. You did what you could without disrespecting your parents. I pause. That's the balance every child has to find. Loving your parents while not excusing their behavior. It's one of the hardest things in the world. I see David flinch at those words. Point taken. Richard's phone rings again. This time, he answers it. What? He barks into the phone. Then his face goes gray. What do you mean the bank called the loan? They can't. We have until the end of the quarter. He listens, and I watch 20 years of arrogance crumble in real time. Fine. Fine, we'll figure it out. He hangs up, and for a moment he looks like he might cry. We're ruined. The bank called the loan early due to concerning financial indicators. Without that capital, we can't make payroll next month. We're going to lose everything. Patricia gasps. Everything? The restaurants? The house? Everything, Richard confirms, slumping in his chair. And I watch as the full weight of their financial reality crashes down on them. The designer clothes, the expensive wine, the casual dismissal of people they deemed beneath them. All of it built on a foundation of debt and delusion. Part of me, the part that spent all evening being patronized, wants to enjoy this moment. But the larger part of me, the part that's been a CFO for 8 years and has seen this same story play out dozens of times, just feels tired. I can help you, I hear myself say. Everyone turns to stare at me. Richard's eyes narrow. Why would you help us? After everything we, not for you, I cut him off. For Jennifer, for David. Because they're family, and family doesn't let that family drown, even when they deserve it. I pull out my phone, scroll through my contacts, and find the name I'm looking for. Rebecca Tan. She was my protege 5 years ago. Now she runs the best restaurant turnaround firm on the West Coast. She specializes in exactly your situation, over-leveraged restaurants with more ego than sense. Richard actually laughs, a bitter, broken sound. We can't afford a consultant. Didn't you hear? We can't make payroll. She owes me a favor, I say simply. I'll call it in. She'll work out a payment plan. I look Richard dead in the eye. But here's the condition. You do exactly what she says. No arguing, no, I know my business better than some consultant. You check your ego at the door, or the deal's off. Richard looks like he's swallowing glass, but he nods. Okay? And one more thing, I add. You apologize, right now, to David, for making him feel ashamed of his mother. Richard looks at David, then at me, then back at David. His pride wars with his desperation, and desperation wins. David, he says stiffly, I apologize for any comments that may have seemed inappropriate regarding your mother. It's the worst apology I've ever heard. Corporate lawyer language. No real ownership. No genuine remorse. But it's something. David doesn't respond. He's still looking at me like I'm a puzzle he can't solve. I stand, smoothing down my faded floral dress, the costume I chose so carefully, the armor I wore into battle. I'm leaving now, I announce. David, when you're ready to talk, really talk, you know where to find me. He doesn't answer. I turn to Patricia, who's clutching her designer purse like a life raft. And Patricia? That necklace you're wearing? It's fake. The diamonds are cubic zirconia. I could tell from across the table. So maybe worry less about other people's worn cardigans and more about your own illusions. It's petty, unnecessary. But after an evening of condescension, I allow myself one perfectly aimed shot. Patricia's hand flies to her necklace, her face crumbling. I walk toward the door of the private dining room, my worn flats clicking on the expensive marble floor. Every eye in the room is on me. At the doorway I pause and turn back. Oh, and Richard? One more piece of free advice. Stop over-leveraging. Stop spending money you don't have to impress people who don't care. Stop judging people based on their clothes instead of their character. I pause. It's not just bad business, it's bad humanity. I don't wait for a response. I walk through Marcello's, past the crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, past the couples dining on overpriced Italian food, past the life-size portrait of Richard Romano in the lobby looking proud and successful and completely delusional. The night air hits my face when I step outside, cold and clean. I did it. I tested them, revealed myself, and said everything I needed to say. So why do I feel like I just made the biggest mistake of my life? My phone rings as I'm unlocking my car, my modest Honda Civic that I've driven for 12 years because it runs perfectly fine and I see no reason to replace it. It's not David. Not yet. It's my assistant from Tech Venture. Eleanor, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday night, but we have a situation. The magazine feature? It wasn't supposed to run until next week, but someone leaked it online an hour ago. It's already trending on LinkedIn. And there's more. Someone connected the dots between you and David Chen, our marketing consultant from 2 years ago. They're calling it nepotism. The board wants an emergency meeting first thing Monday morning. My blood runs cold. The magazine reveal was supposed to be controlled, private, just for the Romano family. But now it's public. And David's career is about to be dragged into my mess. I'll be there, I say numbly. I hang up and sit in my car, still wearing my poor person costume, while my carefully constructed life falls apart in real time. My phone buzzes with notifications. LinkedIn, Twitter, email. It's starting, and then a text comes through from David. Just 3 words. We need to talk. I stare at those 3 words, and I realize that the dinner was just the beginning. The real reckoning? That starts tomorrow. And as I drive home from the worst or maybe the best dinner of my life, I realize that everything I've built over 23 years is about to either fall apart completely or transform into something I never imagined. The question is, which one? The drive from Marcello's to my modest apartment takes 27 minutes. I've made this drive thousands of times over the years. Past the same working-class neighborhoods, the same corner stores, the same lives being lived in the same small spaces. For 23 years, this has been my world, by choice, not necessity. Tonight, it feels different. My phone won't stop buzzing. Notifications are flooding in, LinkedIn, email, text messages. The magazine article has gone viral. People are sharing it, commenting on it, dissecting every detail of my life. CFO lives like she's broke, inspirational or insulting. Eleanor Chen's secret poverty, genius parenting or cruel deception. Tech Ventures Eleanor Chen connected to consultant David Chen, nepotism scandal brewing. I turn off my phone. I can't deal with the world right now. I can barely deal with myself. When I finally walk through my apartment door, I stand in the middle of my living room and really look at it for the first time in years. The secondhand furniture, the thrift store decorations, the faded curtains that I've meant to replace for a decade but never bothered because they still worked fine. I used to see this space as a choice, a deliberate rejection of materialism, a commitment to teaching my son values over valuables. Tonight I'm not sure what I see. I change out of my costume, the worn floral dress, the scuffed shoes, and into my actual comfortable clothes, which are also from thrift stores because the truth is, I genuinely prefer them. They're soft, broken in, real. I walk to the bookshelf, kneel down, and remove the loose baseboard one more time. Inside the metal box are all my secrets: bank statements, investment portfolios, tax returns, $847,000 in liquid savings, another $2 million in retirement accounts and investments, property deeds for buildings I own but David never knew about, 23 years of hidden success. I pull out every document and spread them across my dining table, the $35 garage sale table that wobbles slightly but has held every meal, every homework assignment, every important conversation of David's childhood. And for the first time, I let myself really question, was I wrong? I turn my phone back on. The buzzing starts immediately. 3 voicemails from Patricia. I listen to the first one. How dare you humiliate us like that? You came into our family under false pretenses. You embarrassed us in our own restaurant. Delete. I don't need to hear the rest. An email from Richard. Subject line: urgent, need advice. I almost delete it, but something makes me open it. It's short, desperate, and surprisingly humble. Eleanor, I know I have no right to ask after tonight, but I'm drowning here. Would you really connect me with your colleague? I'll do whatever it takes, please. And then, the text from David. Can we talk? Tomorrow? 3 words, no context, no motion indicators, just can we talk tomorrow? I stare at those words for a long time. Then I type back, coffee shop on Main Street, 9 a.m. His response comes immediately. I'll be there. I don't know this yet, but while I'm sitting in my apartment questioning everything, David and Jennifer are having their own reckoning. I only learn about this conversation later when Jennifer tells me. But I need to share it with you now because it changes everything. They're sitting in their living room, the one I helped them furnish with gifts that were actually expensive pieces I bought and claimed I found on clearance. David is pacing. Jennifer is curled up on the couch watching him. Did you know, David finally asks, that my mother was wealthy? Jennifer considers this carefully. No, but I knew something was off. She was too confident, too knowledgeable. The questions she asked, they weren't simple. They were strategic, surgical even. David laughs bitterly. I sent her money. For 3 years, Jennifer, I sent my millionaire mother $300 every month because I thought she was struggling. Why are you angry? Jennifer asks quietly. David stops pacing. Why am I? Are you serious? She lied to me. Okay, Jennifer says. But why are you angry? Are you angry because she's successful? Because she didn't need your help? Or because she let you help her anyway? David opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. He sits down heavily. I don't know. Jennifer moves closer to him. Can I tell you what I saw tonight? I saw my parents, people I love but know have flaws, treat your mother terribly because they thought she was poor, and I saw your mother handle it with more grace and dignity than anyone I've ever met. She set them up, David protests weakly. She tested them. Jennifer corrects. There's a difference. And honestly, after seeing how they treated her, I'm grateful she did. Because now I know. Now we both know who they really are when no one important is watching. David is quiet for a long time. Then I was embarrassed of her. Jennifer waits. Tonight, before the reveal, when your dad was asking about her office work, asking if she was a receptionist, part of me wanted to disappear under the table. His voice cracks. What does that say about me? It says you're human, Jennifer says gently. It says you bought into the same class prejudices everyone else has, even though your mother tried to raise you without them. I failed her test, David whispers. No, Jennifer says firmly. You're uncomfortable with what you felt tonight. That's not failure, that's growth. 9 a.m. arrives too quickly. I'm already sitting at a corner table when David walks in. He looks like he didn't sleep, neither did I. We don't hug, we don't even smile. We just sit across from each other like two strangers trying to remember why they used to be family. Why, Mom? David's voice is rough. Why lie to me my whole life? I don't flinch from the question. I owe him the truth, all of it. I didn't lie, I say carefully. I withheld information, and before you say that's the same thing, let me explain why it's not. David crosses his arms, waiting. After your father died, I had a choice to make. I could raise you with money, give you every advantage, every opportunity, every material thing you could possibly want. Or I could raise you with values, teach you empathy, hard work, respect for all people regardless of their circumstances. I pause. I didn't trust myself to do both. Why not? David asks, and there's genuine confusion in his voice. Because I'd seen what money did to people, I say. Your father's family destroyed themselves fighting over his inheritance. My own college friends raised children who couldn't see the janitor as human because they'd never learned that titles don't determine worth. I lean forward. I wanted better for you. I wanted you to see people, David. Really see them. And the only way I knew how to teach that was to make sure you never had the luxury of not seeing them. David's jaw works. So you made me think we were poor. We weren't poor, I correct gently. We were modest, middle class, comfortable enough but not extravagant. I worked, really worked. I earned my MBA while you were in elementary school, taking night classes after putting you to bed. I climbed from entry-level accountant to CFO over 20 years of 70-hour weeks. While living in a tiny apartment and shopping at thrift stores, David says flatly. Yes, I acknowledge, because every promotion, every raise, every bonus, I saved it, invested it. But I never let it change our life because I didn't want it to change you. Do you know what I gave up? I ask softly. I wanted to take you to Disney World. I wanted to buy you the expensive basketball shoes all your friends had. I wanted to hire a tutor when you struggled with calculus instead of staying up until midnight helping you myself. David's expression shifts slightly. But more than any of that, I wanted you to grow up kind, to treat the grocery store clerk with the same respect as your professor, to never, ever look at someone's worn shoes and assume you know their worth. My voice breaks slightly. And you did, David. You became exactly the man I hoped you'd be. Except I was embarrassed of you last night, David says quietly. My heart clenches. What? Before the reveal, when Richard was interrogating you about your office work, part of me was mortified. I wanted to defend you, but I also wanted to, apologize for you? He looks up and his eyes are shining with tears. What does that say about me, Mom? I reach across the table and take his hand. It says you're human. It says you absorbed some of the world's prejudices, despite my best efforts. And it says you recognize that feeling for what it was, and you're uncomfortable with it. I squeeze his hand. That discomfort, David, that's growth, that's conscience, that's everything I hoped you'd develop. The coffee shop door opens and Jennifer walks inside, giving us space, but David must have texted her. She sits down, looks at both of us, and says, "Can I say something?" We both nod. "Eleanor, my parents judged you on your clothes and your job title. They decided you were worth less because you appeared to have less. That's wrong, and it's cruel, and I'm ashamed of them." She pauses. "But David, you judged your mother too, just in reverse." David starts to protest, but Jennifer holds up her hand. "You loved her more because you thought she struggled. You admired her more because you thought she sacrificed everything. You sent her money because you thought she needed saving." Jennifer's voice is gentle but firm. "But here's what I saw. A woman who raised an incredible man, who values people over possessions, who had the strength and courage to test us all, including her own son." She looks at me. "Your wealth doesn't make you better, Eleanor. Your character does, and that character was there whether you had $800,000 in the bank or $80. The truth of her words settles over the table like a blessing. My phone rings. I glance at it. "Richard Romano." "I should take this," I say. David and Jennifer nod. "Richard," I answer. His voice is different than last night, quieter, humbler, stripped of all pretense. "Eleanor, I'm calling to apologize. Really apologize, not the corporate non-apology I gave last night." I wait. "You were right about everything, the overleveraging, the arrogance, the way we treated you." He takes a shaky breath. "We're losing the restaurants. 3 of them are already in foreclosure. Patricia's devastated. I'm devastated, but more than that, I'm ashamed." "Richard, no, let me finish. You offered to help despite everything we did to you. That's character I don't have, but I want to learn." He pauses. "Would you really connect me with your colleague, the turnaround specialist?" I look at David and Jennifer across the table. "My family." "Yes," I say. "I'll make the introduction today. But Richard, you need to understand something. This isn't charity. Rebecca Tan is the best in the business, and she's going to tell you hard truths you don't want to hear. You'll have to check your ego, follow her advice, and probably lose some of what you have to save the rest." "I understand," Richard says. "And Eleanor, thank you. For the lesson. All of it." After I hang up, David is looking at me with something like wonder. "You're really going to help them?" he asks. "After how they treated you?" "Not for them," I say. "For Jennifer. For you. Because family doesn't let family drown, even when they deserve it. Even when they're difficult." I smile slightly. "Besides, sometimes the people who need help the most are the ones who deserve it least. That's when helping them says the most about who you are." David is quiet for a long moment. Then he asks the question I've been dreading and anticipating for 23 years. "What happens to all that money, Mom?" I could give him a prepared answer. I could deflect, but I don't. Instead, I ask, "What do you think should happen?" David considers this carefully. "It's yours. You earned it. You should do whatever you want with it." "That's not really an answer," I point out gently. He smiles, the first real smile since this whole thing began. "Okay. Real answer? Keep it. It's yours. But maybe stop hiding. Let people see all of you, not just the parts you think are acceptable." My eyes fill with tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," he says, "even if she was lying to me for 23 years. It's a joke. We both laugh, and something tight in my chest finally releases. "I'm retiring next year," I say. "I've been thinking about starting a foundation, helping single parents, especially single mothers, get access to education, career support, childcare assistance, the things I had to figure out alone." I pause. "Want to help me run it?" David's eyes widen. "Seriously?" "Seriously. You're in marketing. Jennifer's got a business degree. Between the 3 of us, we could actually do some good." Jennifer lights up. "A family foundation?" "Eleanor, that's incredible." "It would mean working together," I warn. "Seeing each other regularly. No more secrets. No more hiding." David reaches across the table and takes my hand. "No more secrets," he agrees. "But Mom, I need you to promise me something." "Anything. Keep shopping at thrift stores if that's what makes you happy. Keep driving the Honda. Keep living in the apartment if you want, but do it because you choose it, not because you're still running some kind of social experiment." He squeezes my hand. "Be yourself, all of yourself. The CFO and the coupon clipper, the millionaire and the mom. Stop splitting yourself in half to teach everyone else a lesson." I can't speak. I can only nod. 3 months pass. The nepotism scandal blows over when the company's lawyers confirm that David worked on a completely different division from mine, and our paths never professionally crossed. The board meeting is tense but ends with a vote of confidence. Rebecca Tan works miracles with the Romano restaurants. They lose 2 locations but save 4. Richard and Patricia attend financial literacy courses, humbling themselves in ways I never thought possible. And tonight, we're standing in a hotel ballroom for the launch of the Eleanor Chen Foundation for Single Parent Success. I'm wearing a dress that actually fits, that I bought new, that costs more than my entire poor mother wardrobe combined. It's elegant but modest, still me, just all of me. David and Jennifer stand beside me on the small stage, both on the foundation's board of directors. Behind us is a blown-up version of that Business Executive magazine cover, the one that started this whole chain of events. In the back of the room, awkward but genuinely trying, stand Richard and Patricia Romano. They donated to the foundation, not a huge amount, but enough to be meaningful for them, right now. It's a start. I step up to the microphone to give my speech. 23 years ago I begin. I made a choice. I chose to hide my success from my son because I wanted him to understand that wealth doesn't define worth. That character matters more than bank accounts. That the measure of a person isn't what they have, but who they are when no one important is watching. I look at David, and he smiles encouragingly. It took one disastrous dinner, laughter ripples through the crowd, because by now everyone's heard the story, to teach me that truth goes both ways. I spent 2 decades teaching my son not to judge people by their poverty, but I never examined my own judgments about wealth. I hid my success because I was afraid it would corrupt my son, afraid it would change me, afraid that having money meant losing values. But my daughter-in-law said something that changed my perspective. It's not the wealth that defines you, it's the character. Jennifer wipes her eyes. This foundation exists because of what I learned from that night. We're not here to judge single parents for being poor. We're here to give them the tools to build whatever life they choose, whether that's staying modest or building empires. Because the goal isn't poverty or wealth, the goal is choice, agency, the freedom to define your own worth instead of letting society do it for you. The applause is thunderous. Later, after the speeches and the networking and the photographs, I find David standing alone on the hotel balcony, looking out at the city lights. I join him, and we stand in comfortable silence for a moment. I spent 23 years teaching you that wealth doesn't define worth, I say quietly, and you spent one night teaching me the same lesson. David turns to look at me. How so? Because when you sent me that $300 every month, you weren't doing it because I needed it. You were doing it because you needed to feel like you were helping me, like you could take care of your mother the way she took care of you. I smile. That's not about money, David. That's about love. And I should have recognized the difference. So we're both learning, David says. We're both learning, I agree. He puts his arm around my shoulders, and I lean into him. My son, my greatest achievement, my best teacher. You know what the craziest part of this whole thing is? David says. What? I'm actually glad it happened. The dinner, the reveal, all of it. He laughs. Because now I know my mom is a total badass CFO who can destroy people with spreadsheets. That's way cooler than I thought you were. I laugh so hard I snort. Language. You told Richard Romano his business decisions were arrogant and stupid, David points out. I think we're past clutching pearls about language. We stand together, looking out at the city, this beautiful, complicated, judgmental, generous city full of people living their lives, making their choices, defining their own worth. And I realize I'm not hiding anymore. Not my wealth, not my values, not any part of who I am. I'm just me. Eleanor Chen, mother, CFO, thrift store shopper, millionaire, teacher, student, all of it, all at once, finally. Thank you for staying with me through all 4 parts of this story. If this story made you think about your own assumptions, about wealth, about poverty, about character, about family, then it did what I hoped it would. We all judge, we all make assumptions. We all see someone's worn shoes or expensive watch and think we know their story. But we don't. We never do. So maybe the next time you meet someone, try seeing them first. Before the clothes, before the job title, before the bank balance. Just see them. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me about a time someone surprised you by being completely different than you expected. Because stories like this, they only matter if they change us, and I'm hoping this one changes you the way that dinner changed me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, your worth isn't in your wallet, it's in your heart. Make it count.